Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. We're coming to you live here on a Tuesday of game week. Got a big show planned for you today. Really excited about this. Going to be joined again by Bill Bender, hopefully to make him a fairly weekly guest. Schlegel will join us in the second and hopefully third segments, talk a little bit about college football, still recap some of the things that happened, look a little bit forward into some of the potential games that are out there and what he likes this week. And then also, I don't know if you've seen it. I have not seen it yet. It dropped, I believe, at 2 a.m. last night. Bill Bender, since he is a distinguished member of the Sporting News and Associated Press and all his accolades, he got a chance to see it prior to everybody else and pre-screen it, if you will. And so he's watched the Netflix documentary on Connor Stein's The Michigan sign stealing scandal. So we'll get to, now that it dropped. It came out at 2 a.m. Schlegel. So we'll get his take and his thoughts on kind of where it was. And it's kind of coming in all over the place. Danny Cannell had some interesting thoughts on it. Interesting too, probably getting this maybe a little bit of headlines with Deion Sanders out in Colorado, shutting down some reporters, Dabo Sweeney, maybe shutting down some of his local callers. What is the real obligation of college coaches, people in leadership positions, men, women, whatever it is, whether you're teachers, principals, coaches, president of the United States, CEO, I don't care. I mean, there is, when you're compensated and you're the leader, it's like you got to answer questions. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So we'll get into that. But first, we're going to start here a little bit, Schlegs, on the top. First of all, how's everything going on this Tuesday? By the way, big dog. Good?
Yeah, I'm good.
I mean,
I'm good. I don't know what happened. It's like you froze on me. But yeah, are we talking about what you were saying about people being able to interview and people getting shut down? Because I could be more than happy to answer that question.
We'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay, good. I'm ready.
We'll talk a little bit with Bill Bender, talk about some of the games. We'll get into that more in the headline segment.
Okay.
Because that's a whole day's work right there for you. I just want to make sure that you're in a good spot and a good mind place. I mean,
listen, I'm in a great mind place because 5:45 this morning, Jacksonville, Florida, Creekside High School. I had 29 baseball kids in there. And we went over what it meant to be gas station ready. What does that look like on the baseball field? How does training for a skilled sport in the weight room, how does that correlate? What are my expectations of them? We had a great lift, like just an introductory. And guys competed already, man. It was hitters versus pitchers. And and I was like, and then it became, hey, if you think that you can pitch, you went over to the pitcher side. And then I let the hitters pick and choose who they wanted to plate pinch hold against, winner loser style at the end. And so that was really fun. But it was just, being able to get back in the weight room with my oldest son's team as he enters his senior year. That was really fun. Then I went on a ruck, Bob, with my wife. And
did you vest up?
Oh, yeah. I wear a 40-pound vest every time I go. She has like a 20-pound vest. And we got 3 miles in, just out there walking around.
Having some conversation. Good talk.
You know what? There's a lot of stuff that we can get done in that like 45-minute convo. I mean, we're already talking about senior graduation and what do we want to do and family in town. I'm like, done. Check that off. Let's go do those things. So, anyways,
there's a lot of stuff you can get done, Schlegs, and 5 to 10 between the sheets too. You don't need the whole 45, but I mean, I'm glad that we had that connectivity. We're working on graduation for Hunter. I mean, listen. You don't stay ready, so you don't got to get ready.
That's all, man.
We're ready to go. Here's what's got me going here. Before we get into this, because we got some news about top 10 players, which will determine the college football playoff race. Top 20 players at Ohio State. Who are in those positions? We'll get to that. But it's a little warm right now in Ohio. Everybody knows that. But it's August, heading into September, Schlegs. Okay? And, I mean, they're shutting down kids' sports on Monday night. I'm like, what are we doing? It's 5:30. It's 6 o'clock. It's dropping below 90. It's not that hot anymore. Be responsible. Get them water. But I don't know if we need to cancel stuff. I went to a school with no air conditioning. And so I did a little research because I know you're all about the research and the
Love the Nuggets. Love the numbers.
Listen, you grew up in Dallas. I played there for 4 years. That turf out there turns into a frying pan in July, August, September. It gets a little rough. Okay. And it's like 90, 94, sometimes 100. And it's bumpy. you get the kids water, you make sure you monitor them, you do things responsibly. I think that's important. But Ohio, they're like, oh my gosh, it's going to be in the mid-90s all week. We better cancel everything. Like Dallas, Tuesday, 94. Wednesday, 96. Thursday, 96. By the way, Wednesday, Thursday, like we're talking like 40% chance of rain, 30% chance of rain. So we're getting some humidity on that too. Friday, 93. Like, I don't want to hear it. Other parts of the country, it's hot. What do you do in the South? People in the South, which you live there now part-time in Jayville, down in Jacksonville, it's hot. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. Hydrate and bend your knees, and you'll be good to go.
Totally agree with you. I mean, I think that when you, especially like if you're in Ohio and we haven't had rain up there in a hot minute, but those are precious days. Like you're just basically taking away practice days. Well, we got to keep them safe. You know how you keep them safer, especially if we're talking about football? You actually practice the fundamentals of the game, not like stopping them from like, oh, we got to just take more breaks. That's what we do here. You have an acclimatization period. You already know there's a rule. The CSCCA, NSCS, it's 50, 30, 20, 10. Like you go through that for conditioning purposes so that you can ooze people in. And then again, hey, we're going to every 15 minutes, we're going to get water. No big deal, but you can still have practice. That's terrible.
Well, I said be smart. We'll pop the helmets. We'll do some of the physical stuff for about a half hour. Pop the helmets, pop the shoulder pads. Like we can find a way to do it responsibly and make sure everything is going good. Because I'm done with this. I'm done with the soft 2 Fs, no T society that we have with the kids. They'll be fine. Do it in a responsible manner. All right, we're going to throw this up here. Top 10 players that will determine the CFP playoff. Number 1, Schlegs, coming in here. Mr. Willie Howard.
Yeah.
Bill Howard, Ohio State quarterback, sitting there at number 1. Do you think that's accurate? Do you think it's appropriate?
I think it's appropriate because of all the hype that's been around. Ohio State, all the key acquisitions they had, the development of the current guys that they have, where they're going to sit. I mean, obviously, if you look at that list right there, nothing's there about Georgia. Why? Because they are the dog right now.
Yeah,
and Carson Beck is and he's fantastic. But like when you determine this race and you go into seeding, like 100%, he's the most important guy. All of football is quarterback driven at an elite level, which is what we're talking about in the CFP. It makes complete sense that he's number 1. I do not agree with number 2, however, because I think that they have way more other things that are going to affect their season as opposed to just a new quarterback. Donovan Edwards would have been more appropriate, but I don't think they're going to be that good. So really, then Dylan Gabriel, that October 12th matchup, they're really 1 and 2 because we know what's going on in the SEC. Matter of fact, on that list, Quinn Ewers is not even on there. Jackson Dart is. Like, they're not even talking about Texas. You got 2 Michigan guys on that list and not a Texas guy. Like, what? Like, what are we talking about?
Well, you got two Bama guys too there with Kobe Prentice as well down at the bottom, the wide receiver. But what's interesting is this 5 of the players, 5 of the top 10 are from the Big Ten. But I guess when you look at it, the only player that isn't from the Big Ten or the SEC is Cam Ward coming in from the ACC with Miami. So it makes a lot of sense that this is how it would ultimately look. Quinn Ewers, I think, should probably be on that list. Like you said, he's the guy that's going to guide Texas. And maybe the reason why he's not on there, similarly to Carson Beck, is people already know what he is. He's an entrenched starter. He's played well. Carson Beck has done the same thing. Well, Howard has come in. He's had success at Kansas State, but he came in. Alex Orji's unknown. Dylan Gabriel of Oregon, their quarterback, had a lot of success at Oklahoma. Still unknown at Oregon, though, with what he's going to do. And then Jaden Milroe at Alabama, I think we saw some highs and lows from him. And like, can he continue to develop as a passer? And he has a new coach in Kalen DeBoer. Drew Aller is one that's pretty interesting to me.
Yep.
Because kid out of Cleveland, Ohio, big, runs well, reminds me a lot of Josh Allen with what he can do, big arm. Will they let him push the ball down the field? That has been the question for Penn State. They've got a good line. They've always got a good defense. They've had good running backs. Receivers leave a little bit to be lacking in the past. Go get some guys out of the transfer portal. Maybe it sets you up a little bit better. And they got one of our Buckeye Schlegs as well. But you got to let him push the ball ultimately down the field too.
And that was the problem last year in their game. I remember, they can run the ball. They have a great defense, right? There's a lot of Big Ten defenses that are really good. But we saw in that Florida State game, if you can't push the ball downfield, they're going to stack the box. And that's exactly what the Buckeyes did to Penn State last year because they just didn't trust that Aller could get it done.
Absolutely. But, this year, if you sit there and look, they're going to have Julian Fleming, who's a Harrisburg kid, Ohio State guy. Not the speedster on the outside, but he is a big physical guy, played really well at Ohio State, going to be their dog, their alpha there right now, which is a pretty good situation for them. Now, I want to transition a little bit to the top 20 players potentially at Ohio State. And who is at the top of this list? The guys that are going to impact their run. So as we get ready to throw that up there and see what that's ultimately all about, you had a couple guys, and there should be limited surprises about what you ultimately have. When you start looking at it, I believe we have Caleb Downs. We're going to look at that as well. We have Denzel
Burke, Jack Sawyer.
Those are the top three. And it's interesting, Schlegel, that those three are all defensive guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this list was not necessarily, they're just saying they're top 20 players, period. Not necessarily top 20 as far as like the impact that they could potentially have, because I obviously would throw Will Howard there toward the top because all goes through him, right? And we kind of saw that last year with, I literally just had his name. Kyle McCord. Yeah. And so, to me, that's the number one. Now, I just think that Caleb coming in, again, new defense, how is he going to be, right? We kind of know who Denzel. Can Jack be that guy? I was surprised that JT was further down the list. I think that Tyleek's going to have a year. I think Emeka's going to have a year. But hey, the beautiful thing is this. You can literally look at this list in particular, and you can say, those are 20 dudes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, those are 20 dudes with a lot of experience, minus JJ Smith, who's a freshman. But all those guys are very, very good players. Now, how you rank them based upon what they're going to add value-wise are the most key components. To me, the number one guys are the quarterback and the O&D line. That's how I just view it.
Because let's say it's an offensive line-driven team, defensive line-driven team. You've got to be good in the trenches. Everybody knows that. All right. You got Bill Bender coming up, going a little bit national, talking to Bill Bender of the Sporting News, breaking down last week, next week, and that Connor Stein's documentary next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
That's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yap.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
Anthony Schlegel, just how physical he was. You saw the girth and the power and everything he was bringing to the table, especially when he was a nice beefy 255 playing middle linebacker. All right, welcome back into the program. Now I'd like to introduce a guy who's neither beefy nor girthy, a guy that's lean and svelte. Mr. Bill Bender of the Sporting News does a great job writing all kinds of stuff there, covering college football, NFL, little hoops, everything for them. Bill, thank you for coming back in and rejoining us. You are our first reoccurring guest, so we appreciate you coming on. And I just want to try to figure out what the heck happened last weekend across the pond in that Florida State Georgia Tech game.
Yeah, before I get to that, and this proves how Lancaster I am, I got a buddy texting me right now asking me if there's a Rax still in Athens. And we were discussing, I was like, I don't think it's there. I know
the Rax is still there on East Main.
There's still a Rax in Lancaster, Schlegs. You got to go there.
There's a Rax in Circleville, baby.
Yes.
It's right down the road.
And I think Bobby and I are among the very few, well, not a few. I mean, it's still there, so people still eat there. And every time I'm down in Lancaster, I make sure to stop there. My wife's not always a fan, but I don't care. It's something that we enjoy. But that's what I've been trying to circle through. while getting now about Florida State, Bobby, we talked about this yesterday. You got to trust your quarterback. Why bring in a quarterback if you're not going to trust him to throw the ball down the field?
Do you think that this is just kind of what DJ is at this point? I mean, we've watched him at Clemson. Was it the offense? Was it the O-line? Was it the lack of big play receivers? Saw him go out to Oregon State, had some more measured success, but the offense really didn't run through him. I don't know, Bill, if he's a guy that really wants to run the ball, and I don't know if he's a guy that really can push the ball down the field with efficiency.
Right, and that's the problem. He's not a threat in the running game. He gets caught pretty quickly from behind. There was a couple times Georgia Tech caught him in a blitz I don't think he saw. But I'll still say this. If you go into a game and you don't throw a pass of more than 10 yards into the third quarter, air yards, 10-yard pass down the field, then you're going to be in trouble. And, that might be acceptable at a place like Georgia Tech where they're not going to have a 4 or 5-star quarterback. But this is Florida State, a team that was complaining about not being in the playoff, a team that has enough talent to be a top 10 team. And, I think he made a couple nice fourth down throws, but they let themselves, and you guys know this as former players, sometimes your game plan invites the other team to come in. And I think Florida State invited that upset from the get-go.
Yeah, I think they underestimated Georgia Tech again. It kind of goes back to in all the portals and all the recruiting stuff, the leader, the senior-led teams, the guys that have been in the program, the continuity of teams still matters because that team, a lot of guys were back. They know exactly what they want to do. They're an offensive line-driven, run-the-football team. They bullied Florida State, and they're still able to have success. I love the fact that can still transpire in 24. We just got done talking, Bill, about top 10 players to determine the college football playoff. Will Howard was number one. Outside of him, nationally, who do you think's the guy that's really going to dictate like this college football playoff race?
Well, quarterbacks always do. So a couple, Dylan Gabriel at Oregon, certainly. This first idea, and Will Howard twin to me because both are first-year transfer quarterbacks. And it's about winning the locker room. And Will Howard's clearly done that. Dylan Gabriel's done that. It's about picking up the scheme you're in. Sometimes you get more out of that quarterback in the second year. Can they do it right away for national championship contenders? Outside of those two, I would say Jalen Milroe. I think we've done a lot of forgetting with Alabama that they won the SEC. Yes, they had a lot of guys transfer. But Kalen DeBoer just took Michael Penix to the national championship. So to me, he will probably get more out of Jalen Milroe, who's one of those athletes that can do both. And I think Alabama is going to factor into the more into the SEC race than we might want to let ourselves believe.
It'll be interesting because I think you're right, Bill. A lot of people have written them off. It's been Georgia, which everyone knows, Texas, the newcomer. Ole Miss has kind of been the darling, and Alabama's just kind of been lurking in the weeds, which I'm sure Nick Saban, even though he doesn't coach there anymore, loves that. He'll call that the, quote, yummy rat poison, where everybody's writing their team off and no one's really looking at them while everyone's circling all these other squads to potentially go and ultimately make a run. With the Florida State losses, does that open up the ACC? Like, does Georgia Tech, are they better than what we think? Is it Miami and Clemson's race to lose now? Like, kind of where do you stand after, trying not to overreact too much out of a 5 or 6 weekend slate of games?
Well, wait till Monday or Tuesday if the following things happen. What happens if Georgia boat races Clemson in Atlanta and the Tigers get routed? What happens if Florida beats Miami in the swamp? That could happen. And you could take it all the way down to schools like North Carolina playing Minnesota. Maybe Minnesota wins that game. And then we're all of a sudden looking at the ACC like this conference is weak. Right. This conference won't get 2 playoff teams and those kind of things. And that absolutely could happen because we like to overreact to week 1 more than anything else. So Georgia Tech is in the mix in that conference. SMU, I don't know if you guys watched them. They needed every second to go beat Nevada. That was wild. They're in the mix. And that can be healthy for an entertainment perspective. But as far as the playoff goes, that conference is going to have a hard time getting 2 teams.
Yeah, we were just talking about SMU last show with Jeff Schwartz, and they got a really good tight end, put the whole team on his back, end up winning that game. But he was saying it's hard for offensive coaches. Like, it's better for them just to prepare for a week because their offense was all over the place and they started getting really cute as opposed to just being what you are and going out there and playing. And that you made a great point though, Bill. Like week 1, we overanalyzed week 1 because I remember we won the national championship. We got beat by Va Tech week 2. And then the third game was at Cincinnati. That was kind of a snoozer. But then it took off from there. And sometimes things like this happen. I just don't think it's going to be that quick of a turnaround for Florida State because of DJ. But early teams are still in it now because of the CFP. If somebody had an early loss, ACC, Big 12, Bill, who do you think could still make a push in those conferences? Like if a Clemson loses early to Georgia.
I think Clemson will be fine if they lose this game, depending on how they lose. And I was arguing this with my editor this morning where he was like, well, Oregon lost 49-3 to them a couple years ago. I was like, Oregon uses the transfer portal. So if Dabo loses, we're going to talk about the transfer portal. We're going to wonder whether or not they're an elite program. If it's bad, we're going to wonder whether they would belong in a playoff game. And that's just the perception part of this game is still out there. We'll still react like that to the results of the game. But I think Miami's very interesting because they haven't played Florida much. That's one thing about that series. They're going into the Swamp, not an easy place to play. But with Cam Ward, another transfer quarterback we talked about a lot in the offseason, Damian Martinez adds a physical element to their running game from Oregon State. We all love saying the U is back. I mean, perhaps more than any other school on the planet. But that if they lose, we go right back to what we always say about it. They weren't ready for primetime.
A team that's always tethered, Bill, to Miami is Notre Dame because of those classic matchups we watched in the 80s and 90s, Catholics versus convicts. If Notre Dame falters, are we going to be saying the same things about them as you might be saying about Miami?
Yes. And part of that is the record against ranked teams of the last couple years. The last ranked game that Notre Dame had on the road was Clemson last year. I believe it was right after the infamous Tyler from Spartanburg call, and they weren't ready to play. That was equal parts. They weren't ready, and Clemson was absolutely ready. You're going into a tough environment. You mentioned the heat. It is very hot here in Ohio, by the way. It's ridiculous, but they're going down to that Texas heat at night. They're going to be riled up at Kyle Field. That's a tough spot for a week 1 game with a new quarterback. One thing I like about Notre Dame, they do bring the defense back. And they always say defense travels. They have a very veteran defense. So unless the weather and the heat at that time is a big factor, I think they find a way to squeeze through.
We're going to take a quick break. You mentioned Tyler from Spartanburg. We're going to dive into him a little bit next year, Bill, on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show here. Bill, you mentioned Tyler from Spartanburg, and that was the infamous phone calls. They were 4-4. Clemson was reeling last year. And he went after Dabo being the highest paid coach in college football, not using the portal. Things weren't looking all that good. And I honestly thought Notre Dame was going to be the coup de grace. They're going to finish him off. They're going to put him under 500, and that would be it. Credit to Dabo. They battled back. They finished the season really strong. I believe won 4 straight. Turned that 4-4 into 8-4 and found a way to salvage that the best that they possibly could with a big victory over Notre Dame helping, obviously. He's not taking calls anymore on their call-in show, and this happened at Ohio State. I can't remember the exact game. I thought it was the 2014 game after Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech. Then we were debating whether it was the 2015 Michigan State loss. I think we settled on it being the 2016 Penn State loss when Urban said no more calls on the call-in show, but as a journalist, you're a big J journalist, Bill. Schlegel and I are just slaps out here talking about football. Where do you come down about coaches having to have exposure to both fans and journalists?
Well, that's in the news right now. And with the Dion situation with Sean Keeler in Colorado, and I fall kind of on both sides. I'm one of the things with my career, I've always tried to be fair. Whether it's on the radio, it's not going to be fair when somebody calls into a coach because that caller is going to have their opinion. They're going to be set in it. and the coach has to be political when, Dabo did the best thing last year. He won a bunch of games and silenced Tyler, so to speak. With reporters and coaches, I think there has to be a give and take. If you're a reporter that continually criticizes a coach and calls them names and makes up nicknames, you might feel some heat for that. But if you're the coach, I think Deion in this situation, just answer the questions. You don't have to be detailed. You can ice reporters out in a certain way and give them short answers, but that's the best way to show that it doesn't really bother you, that criticism.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because it does go both ways when you start calling them, again, name calling and dropping it. And there's like 4 or 5 that he used, and they're quite funny. I was listening to it on the drive on Monday. That's going to put you in a bad light. And also, Deion wants a perception. But hey, here's the reality. You went 4-8. You started hot and you collapsed. What are you going to do this year? But I think we also got to be professionals. And that is, own up like, hey, we're going to get better. Or, hey, you know what? I'm just not going to answer that question. Move on, as opposed to, I'm going to ban you. Because now it's going back to what is it that you do? When, again, it all needs to be about the players and everything that we're doing to make them better, right?
I think accountability, too. As a reporter,
sure.
there have been times where, I remember one time I think I did this with Urban Meyer, where as soon as the question left my mouth, I was thinking in my brain, oh, that was a horrible question. He might light me up. And I got a real short answer in return. And I've always told other young reporters that, hey, if you ask a dumb question, you're going to get a dumb answer and you can't be mad about it. So it is learning. I think coaches are on some level obsessed with control. We all know that. They're control freaks. But they know how to play the game too. So again, accountability as reporters, accountability as coaches. If you get beat by 40, you're going to get tough questions. You might as well answer them.
Well, I think that's when you look at some of these questions. I think he called him the Bruce Lee of BS. I mean, some of these, they're funny nicknames, but so much of what Deion has been selling, Bill, as he gets up there and he'll bloviate a little bit, and it's almost, sermon-esque when he's talking. And there's been things in his life that necessarily don't align completely with what he is espousing. And so there are some cracks in that. I think that all the criticism is fair, because in my mind, and I just haven't understood why they chose, well, we're just not going to answer questions from you. I mean, that's what they do in countries like Venezuela,
right.
Cuba, Russia. I mean, you can answer the question however you want. And I watched Jim Tressel do it as eloquently as anyone for 10 years at Ohio State. And that to me was kind of my issue with it. Is you watch Jim Harbaugh get up there, people asking questions, and he'll give some weird off the wall answers, but he still always answers the question, and he never shuns anybody out. And that's why I just don't think it's a good look to ever blackball someone.
Well, and Brian Flores is another great example from last week. He stood there. There was a story about him and Tua that was out there, and he took the questions. And I think I've always thought when you cover, and I've covered NFL games with NFL players and NFL coaches, that's a different ball game, because they're so well schooled. They've been there, done that for so long. Occasionally you would get a fun Pac-Man Jones rant or something, but when you went to get those quotes, you kind of knew what was coming. And I think there's a professionalism to that. At Ohio State, in my experience, at least, between Urban Meyer, Jim Tressel, and Ryan Day, they do answer questions. I think Ryan Day runs about as open a media session as any coach I've ever seen. He'll take 45 to 50 minutes of questions when he probably knows what the tone of those questions are going to be. It's really exciting as a reporter when you have that much access. But again, you still have to be fair.
With that, because I want to get into one other thing, Bill. And I talked to you yesterday on my show on The Fan, and you weren't at the liberty to truly discuss it yet. The Connor Steins documentary, I didn't realize it came out at 2 a.m. And Bill, there were sickos that were commenting on it during our show today, which means they were up at 2 a.m. watching it and then back up again at like 7 o'clock. Or maybe they stayed up. I'm not sure. Kind of now that it's been released, I'm going to watch it tonight. Kind of your thoughts on this. You said it was pretty impartial and fairly unbiased. Your thoughts on that Netflix documentary? You know
what? I told my editor, publish the content at 6, and I woke up pretty early this morning and I saw how many people were in those articles at 6 a.m. So I was like, it is going to add another layer to the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, regardless of which side you fall. There's definitely fault. You find fault in some of the things that Connor Stallions did. And I would say this documentary walks the line between the seriousness of the allegations and what that could mean for Michigan, and some absurdity. There are some absolutely absurd things in this, and you learn a little bit about the sign stealing part. It tries on some level to paint Connor Stalions as, I don't want to say sympathetic, but understanding why he did what he did. But then at the same time, it'll take some of those turns. And there are some shocking moments, even for somebody that's reported and heard and written a lot about this scandal. There were still kind of a couple head-turning moments for me.
Is it one of the deals where, you're like, yeah, they cheated? Like, I mean, because again, we all have like they cheated. This was a significant competitive advantage, right? And I didn't even watch it yet. I just saw a clip, and it was, that Dave Pony guy. I don't even know his name. Like, I'm not into his social media stuff. But he's like, yeah, that was Connor. He's like, I don't even know this guy. Yeah, that's because you shaved your face and your head. Of course, you don't look like that guy standing on the sidelines. He's like, yeah, or is Dan Potter or whatever. I don't know. He's like, yeah, that was Connor. Like, he told me. Does it really say, like, because Buckeye fans are going to take it, they cheated? I'm talking more national, Bill, because you know how this, reverberates around the country.
Well, there's no question there was wrongdoing. It's just how far into those gray areas is their defense? Because you look at it, how are they going to defend what they did? And there's no question that Connor Stalions obtained signals, video from sending people to games. Did it go into? Because
I like having information before I watch it. It's fine.
He admits.
Does it go into how they implemented it?
Not enough. That was the question I had that said, okay, What was this system? There's some things that are still unanswered, like anything else. I mean, the one bombshell for me was they leak his interview with the NCAA. And that is the one that I thought, as soon as I watched it, I was like, never seen that. And the way that he answers questions, it's like when you watch one of those courtroom dramas, you're like, okay, he's lying right there, that kind of thing. And you see that in the documentary. So, I mean, like I said, I was entertained throughout. I've been entertained by some of the back and forth on social media throughout as well. So I think you guys will definitely enjoy it. And one thing I wanted to mention, one thing real quick. I had a high school coach tell me this last week. He said the biggest thing with signs and signals, an old high school coach said, if I know you're running and I know you're passing, it just changes everything I'm doing defensively. I know you guys as former linebackers, I can't see you not agreeing more. If you knew it was run every play, it changes your footwork, your technique, doesn't it?
Oh, listen, yeah. I mean, I just remember one time, Bill, they were showing like they were going screen. The guy didn't even rush. He just literally sat on the screen, right? And there was a couple of times we saw at Ohio, like in the Ohio State game, like they just ran a play. They're not going to come back. But then we came back to a play, and it just so happened that all the dudes were in that spot, right? Like totally uncalled for, zero coverage in a red zone to stop the run. You wouldn't do that. Like that's just not a call you would do, but yet you're doing it in that moment. That's the competitive advantage.
Yeah. So it's a little wild. I'm excited to watch it, Bill. I appreciate your candor on it. I appreciate you stopping by. Your guy never turns down an interview, so I really appreciate you taking some time with us. I know you're the busiest guy in the world. Please check out Bill Bender at Bill Bender 94 on X, and then also all his great stuff on the Sporting News. Bill, thanks for some time today.
Hey, no problem. I'll talk to you guys soon. Enjoy week 1. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. All right, thanks, coming up next. Stay locked in. We got our headlines right coming at you. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Bobby Carpenter. I want to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Affinity Whole Health, the leaders in the testosterone replacement industry. I've been on a testosterone replacement program for a few years right now, and I've got to tell you, it's been an absolute game changer. Affinity Whole Health has allowed me to be the best version of myself, both mentally and physically. I loved how easy it was to get started. I booked my free consultation, met with my prescriber, checked my numbers, and Affinity Whole Health designed a program that was customized to fit my needs. So I'm telling you guys, if you have low energy, you want to get rid of that spare tire around the waist or take it to the next level in the bedroom, Affinity Whole Health is the place to get started. So don't wait any longer. 5 minutes of your time, book your free consultation. You're going to love the way you feel. All right, welcome into our headlines. That's brought to you by our friends over at Affinity Whole Health. Our friends at Affinity Whole Health, hey, you know what? They're offering personalized treatment plans to help you feel better, whether you're struggling with a variety of things, weight loss, low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep. They can help you with all of it. I've been a patient there for 7 years. They've been tremendous. They'll take good care of you just like they took care of me. They have health experts to provide the guidance you need to help safely reach your goals. They've got Ohio covered, Cleveland, Columbus, heck, they're in Indy, they're in Chicago. They're expanding everywhere. So go to AffinityWholeHealth.com to check them out. That's AffinityWholeHealth.com. All right, Schlegs. Seem to get pretty fired up about that Connor Stallions deal. Do you have Netflix? Are you going to watch this thing tonight?
Of course I have Netflix. I got every kind of
course
flip.
I do.
I mean, like, what are we talking about? I got DirecTV, and then you also got YouTube TV, and then you also got Amazon TV, and you got, I don't know why I got them. I need to somehow cancel some of these things. I got all the stuff.
Hold on. Why do you have DirecTV and YouTube TV? Can you answer me that?
No, I gotta cancel that. I don't know,
because
I just happened to see it the other day.
So we got YouTube TV. Because you have two homes, and so it's like, what do you do? And not every place is everywhere. Well, listen, you go back and forth to the farm here in Ohio. You're down in the heat in Jayville, where apparently people don't ever play sports outside because it's too hot, according to Ohio. But we got YouTube TV for a place on the Ohio River, and I was like, let me try this out. Plus, they had the NFL Sunday ticket on there, and I was like, okay, let's do that. So I did that, but I was worried because I didn't want it to buffer. I didn't want it to not be good, and I just wanted it to. I wanted to make sure that it was going to work.
Yeah. And
so with that, we rode with AT&T for a while still, and then I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months ago, my wife's like, listen, why are we still paying for the AT&T? I said, you know what? You're right. It's time to cut them loose. So we had to cut a man loose because we're paying for Netflix, paying for Max because I'm watching Hard Knocks and Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and all that crap. We've got Apple Plus that came in, which is sweet. We got that was part of one of our I don't know, some bundle that came in. But it's got Masters of the Air. The problem is there's a million things on a million different deals.
Yeah, that's fine.
But we do have Netflix. I'm going to watch that tonight. I can't believe these sickos that watch this thing in the middle of the night. But like Bill said, it's pretty good. A lot of these pieces, like if you look at them, The Last Dance, like with Jordan, Swamp Kings, like they're told from the perspective of the I want to say the protagonist or maybe antagonist, but like it's their slant on the story. Whereas this, they said it was, Bill, I think, was saying like, you could tell like they try to paint him as a sympathetic figure, but there's definitely the understanding that there was wrongdoing involved in some malfeasance that occurred.
And I can see why people would take that stance because like they're, again, from the clips that I've seen, right? Think about this. You got a dude, I think he wrote some kind of like manifesto of how he was eventually at one point. I heard this. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm gonna say it anyways. I don't care.
Yeah, it's called Mein Kampf.
That he wanted to be the head football coach at Michigan, right? And like, hey, what do you want to do? You want to be a Michigan man, and I'm gonna do whatever I can for the program. And hey, Jim Harbaugh doesn't know what's going on, but I got a game ball right here. It said my name on it in some kind of capacity, and you can see him like, hey, was he used, right? Did like people just use it, and then like he's like the scapegoat for inventing all this stuff up when he had permission to be able to go do, right? Win at all costs. Well, what does that mean? Hey, these guys are taking steroids. Hey, these guys are cheating class. Hey, these guys are, well, this guy's on the road filming people, like whatever. So I'm excited to watch it, but I really want everything to come out about the letter of the NCAA handled to Michigan. See what's in those weeds.
Yeah, we've got all right. So we've got that.
Headlines. Sorry,
I'm gonna make sure I watch that tonight, and so I can get a little combo on it tomorrow. Why don't you make sure, Schlegs, that you watch it as well, so we can discuss that a little tomorrow. I know we got a lot going on. It'd probably be about 2 hours, hour and 45 minutes. So crack open yourself a little beverage, and we can roll through that. I'm gonna have some football practice tonight with the kids. And I'm going to put on all the sweats. I'm going to put on some pads. I'm going to put on a helmet to make sure that they know that I can handle the heat. So it's just so all the parents don't think like, oh, you're just some cruel slave driver. No, I'm not. I'm going to go out there. Hey, Schlegs, the servant leader, servant leadership. I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to go out there. I'm never going to ask somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do. Does that make me a meathead? Probably. Did I wear a hat during acclimation period because the kid said it was hot and it hurt their head? Yes, I did, because I'm going to lean into all that, Schlegs. If you make yourself one of the people, then it's fine.
I absolutely love you, man. Like, guys, I just want you to know, like, Bob's 41 years old. He's right now. Get the visual right there. You got the guy. You've seen him in the Affinity Whole Health. We know that he's in shape, but out of spite, out of just people being soft, he's going to literally put on full pads tonight and go to practice. Grown ass man out there, full pads.
I'm wearing a sweatshirt underneath too, Schlegs. This is full scale.
Why would you not? Why would you not?
Yeah. Well, because I want to make sure that it's above reproach. So the parents can't be like, you're trying to kill my kids. No. We're going to do it safely and responsibly. We're going to get a lot of water breaks, make sure everything's good. Listen, the Buckeyes are playing today, practicing. They're not canceling the game against Akron. You know why? Because there's TV and there's money involved. Okay, that's how the world works. It may be too hot one day. You don't see the mailman say, oh, it's too hot, I can't do my job. You don't see people working outside. It's too hot, we're not going to work. No, when there's finances involved, this is what we're supposed to do. Sports is supposed to teach people to be tough. So the Buckeyes building toughness. So that's what it's all about. Sports are supposed to teach that in a safe and responsible manner.
Yeah. Hey, the other thing too is, Bob, is that it's youth athletics. And again, you don't need to, like, your kids aren't getting a scholarship, people, right? In youth football right now, right? But what I will say is this, it also is voluntary. So if you feel that way as a parent, then hey, don't show up. But don't shut down league-wide when other people want to go out there. I just know last year we didn't have any canceled because of the heat in Florida, but we just got rain. And it was like, we can't even practice. Our biggest thing down here is like field space. We'll just get kicked off of fields because they're playing freaking soccer. And we're just like, whatever. We just want to practice.
Just want to practice. All right. Well, Buckeyes will be practicing today.
Hey, look at all those headlines, guys, we cover on the Bobby Carpenter.
This is the big stuff, Schlegs. This is what we're going to get into. Coming up, we've got a little tailgate talk, answer some of your questions. We got a poll out there that we're going to get into about important player impacting your team's CFP choices from our social at Bobby Carp Show. So check that out. All that coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, Schlegs, we got ourselves a little fan poll here on some tailgate talk. We're going to ask the fans, answer your questions. Not a ton voting, still early on in the process. Who is the most important player for their team's CFP chances? We've got Will Howard, Ohio State. We've got Dylan Gabriel, obviously at Oregon. Jalen Milroe from Alabama. No surprise, Will Howard coming in at number one. Those are three quarterbacks. Two of them are transfers. A couple of them have been there then. And Milroe has been there, obviously, for a couple of years, so we've got that going for him. Fantastic job joining Bill Bender. We've got some other great stuff here against it. One of the questions that always kind of comes up, Schlegs, is rotations, and people have kind of talked about this in the comments of how do you think they're going to rotate players? When do you think they'll rotate guys in? When is it too early? When is it too late? And I know Tress like to get guys in earlier. Urban waited a little longer. Where do you kind of see them going week one? I mean, it's a 50-point spread, so you feel like you're getting some guys in. What do you think is appropriate to still get your veterans and keep those guys sharp, but get that experience for the young guys?
I think it's all in the eye of the coach. Guys want to get out there and they want to get their stats. They want to play with their teammates. They want to make an impact. But I also think it's in the eye of the coach. Did I see enough of my guy today? Like, did he get enough work as though it was a practice? And he got a little bit better today. Boom, pull him out, next guy in. How do we want to rotate? Especially when you have deep rooms like you do on the defensive line, interior, at linebacker. And this is one of the things too. We have to get guys in because if somebody goes down, you have somebody that has live bullet game experience to be able to go in. The beauty of our slate right now is that like you got about 4 of them before you go into that big Oregon game. So you got to you already are solidified in some areas, but it's not that. It's about the backups. It's about the guys that are going to go in next should something happen, that they got to be ready to be called upon so that they can respond accordingly. And you can only do that with live bullets.
Yeah, one of the things that I think you can always do is I like starters always to take the first series of the second half because they need to get used to coming out of the locker room cold,
Yes, good point, Bob.
going again, so that you're not going to be a slow starter. But I do think in the second quarter, more so on the offensive skill positions and then maybe on the defense, you're not going to take your quarterback, your O-line out, but you can rotate receivers in the second quarter, running backs. I remember they used to throw us in there at linebacker. AJ and I, we were freshmen, middle of the second quarter, get us a series in there, 2 series, intermixed. Then we come out, stars would start again our freshman year. Then we would start playing. And so that allows you to get that feel where you're still getting some real game action, but the starters aren't being neglected either. And they're still getting sharp and being ready to go. So it's a feel thing. Like you said, it's going to be different and unique to every single player. And some of it's the coaches, like how much has this guy played? Do we feel good about him right now? Has he been injured? Does he have anything nagging? Is there more that he can learn? Can he get stuff out of this game? Because remember, every rep is precious. Every rep is valuable. That's why you want to make sure that you're getting them and doing a terrific job with it. All right. We're going to wrap up the show here in a minute, get our parting thoughts before we get out of here on this Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
It's just, that's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yap.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
All right, welcome back into the show as we finish up. Thank you for tuning in. Please remember to like, subscribe, leave your comments. We'll get to all of them. I love to read through them, Schlegs. They're always entertaining. I'm off here in the last minute. I'm going to be going up to the BMV to trek through that. I know it's going to be exciting, get my license renewed. I got to get a trailer registered, some different things, or else I'd do it online. So wish me luck. You got about 30 seconds for your parting shots, Schlegs. What do you got? What wisdom, knowledge bomb are we dropping on the folks?
No, I just want to encourage our guys, right? You had Mecca, Cameron Babs, G. Scott, Trevion. They are sharing their testimony at Ohio State. I've seen a lot of it posted online. And, it's not just a Jesus thing. It's a face deal. But to me, what it is it's how bold our players are and wanting to be able to talk about their faith and how Christ has impacted their life. And I'm just proud that they're using their platform to do so. They
are. We've got a great group of young men. Remember that. When you boo them, they are good football players, but they're better people. Pretty excited about that. We got about 10 seconds left. Thank you for tuning in. We got a big show for you Wednesday coming at you. Game week here. Stay locked in. Keep tuning in to the Bobby Carpenter Show right here on Big Play Network.